I really enjoyed going to Taiwan. This was for the California Superbike School. So I was there for the 2 days of code race and also 2 days of schools. So this was at Penn Bay International Circuit, and it was just a very enjoyable time for me to ride with the students and yeah, be associated with the California Superbike School. And I first started racing in the Premier category, the Superbike category, in 2014. 2015 was my second year in the championship, and that was the year that I was the Australian Superbike champion, was in 2015. And now this year in 2016, I have become part of the Desmo Sport Ducati team, and this involves Troy Bayliss. So he is one of the owners of the team. Yeah, there is a big difference between the street bike and the Australian Superbike, and then also the GP bike. Even though they're all Ducati, there's a bit of difference. Between a street bike and the Australian Superbike, it's not a massive difference. The bikes are fairly similar, but we make changes to the suspension and some of the electronics and a few of the other performance parts, the air filter and the exhaust pipe and things like this. But so the change isn't too much. The engines stay mostly the same and the chassis mostly the same, so it's not too bad. But the change from the Australian Superbike then to the MotoGP bike, it's a big difference. This is a prototype machine, so everything about this bike is very different. The chassis is very rigid, it's very firm, and the electronics are far more sophisticated than that of the Superbike. And on top of that, it's just the outright power of the engine. They're a very powerful motor and very fast. I think because of the amount of force that the GP bike has with the acceleration and the deceleration, the chassis needs to be very rigid to cope with these forces. Whereas in the Superbike, there's not as much acceleration and deceleration force, so the bikes are less rigid, they have a lot more flex in them, and this I think is a little bit more comfortable to ride. Also because the Superbike it's based on the production motorcycle, so for the street rider, the bike needs to be comfortable to ride on the road. So to ride like you said, the Superbike, maybe you're 50%, but then to ride the GP bike, I think it's more like 90%. It's a lot more difficult. There's so much more force involved, and the rider has to be able to cope with this force. So I think that it's quite a different in the percentage of physical ability there. I think so, yeah. So the guys who race in GP, they work very hard on their their physical fitness. So it's quite a lot of hard work. I feel that the engine on the GP bike is very smooth. The way the power is delivered, very smooth. Obviously it's very fast, but the power is available to you from low in the RPM all the way through the rev range right to the red line. So the power is very smooth, and I think this is because of the pneumatic valve. This is like a video game, the seamless, the gearbox. So when you ride, you almost don't feel the gear changes. It's very smooth and very easy to use. So imagine riding the street bike, okay, or the Superbike, the Superbike. So you are, you're full throttle and you're shifting the gear. So it's wah, pa, 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 pa. You can feel the transition in the bike when you do this. But on the GP bike, it's ba 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 ba. You don't. It's just the bike stays straight and smooth, and there's no transition, nothing. The bike is getting full power the whole time. It's quite interesting. Yeah, it's really nice. Yeah. The only time to use the clutch is on the taking off out of the pit lane, the start of the race, and when you come back into the pit lane and come into the pit box. So this is the quick shifter is very advanced. It's a lot of technology. So you can not use the clutch and just use the shifter for going up and down the gears. It's very easy. The electronics on the MotoGP bike is very, very advanced. It's very sophisticated, so you can adjust it so for every single corner on the circuit and provide the bike with the right amount of power and the traction control and the wheelie control, and you can adjust all of the things on the bike. A lot of people think the rider is doing less and less work. The rider is still a big part of riding the motorbike, but it just makes the electronics just make the bike maybe more safe, I think, to ride. So yeah. The most important thing with the carbon brake is the style that you use to warm the brakes up. Okay, so because they're carbon, they only work in a certain temperature. So you have to be careful with the brake when you warm it up. So it's basically when you ride the bike, you sort of just drag a little bit of brake for almost a full lap to generate temperature, and then once you have the temperature, they're quite good. But because when you're going from one corner to the next corner, they lose a little bit of heat that comes down. So when you go to grab the brake, you can grab the brake lever very, very hard initially, and then the brake, because it doesn't have the temperature there, it doesn't bite very hard straight away. But once you have the brake on for not very long, only maybe 1 or 1 and a bit seconds, then it starts to get the temperature and it starts to bite very hard. So then you have to come off the brake a little bit so that you don't go. it doesn't go up like this. It's very interesting. Yeah. So you grab the brake very hard, and then you've got to kind of come off and modulate the brake lever so that you stay on maximum brake pressure that you possibly can. So it's a different style of using it. You don't sort of really get that with the steel. The steel brakes, you kind of just sort of grab the lever and you just kind of squeeze it. You don't have to worry about this. So. The limit, the area that you're working in is very small. So it's very easy to go past the limit and make the front tire lock. So the guys, like I said, it's practice. They just practice a lot, and the feeling that they have with it, they can be very good at riding the brake. Yeah, right to the very limit, and use this. Yeah. The middle of the turn. So the grip that you have at this lean angle is very small, so you're playing on a very fine line with the brake lever and the amount of grip that you have in the front. And I think this is why you see a lot of the riders crash with the front going on the entry into the turn, because it's such a fine line with the brake. I think so. Yeah, you have more room for error there with the steel brake. Yeah, it's very hard, and the arms, because there's more force, so the bike is trying to slow up so much, and there's a lot of weight on the front, and for your arms every time like this, it's very, very hard for them. The tyre for the World Superbike, it's very soft. You can put your fingernail into the tyre and it's very, very squishy, it's very soft. But in comparison with the GP, it's quite hard. The tyre is very hard. When you go to press your fingernail in, it's like pressing it on the concrete. It's very, very stiff. It's very stiff. So. My best explanation is that you should get some professional coaching. Like I mentioned earlier, the California Superbike School. This is, in my opinion, the best place to go. But of course, as with anything that you do, the more that you practice, the better that you can get. So I think that it's important to be riding the motorbike as much as you can and practicing all of the time to improve. Yeah, so this is the best advice that I have. Yeah, try to ride as much as you can.